Where we are. And this is, some people just don't get it. When I was in Ghana, and I was reading here in the tabloids of what is he doing going to Ghana? And when I stood in those dungeons, about the size of a classroom, and over 1,000 slaves were captured and held there. 2 months, sleeping in their own waste and bodily fluids, watching their wives and children ripped from them, little boys being sexually molested, mothers having their babies ripped from their stomachs, and going to the place that was called the door of no return, only to understand that every day to follow would escalate with the level of despair and inhumanity unknown to man in history. And my journey that I thought about through the campaign was just to get back to the continent of Africa where we left in slavery and I returned in the mayoralty. Yes. And people who criticize this, they just didn't get it. They just didn't get what my campaign represented to so many people in this city and in this country. They felt that there was someone that was one of their own. And you may look at the announcement today of just African Americans. No, it's not. Because Irish knew what it was like to come here to these shores and see signs that said no dogs, no Irish allowed. Italians knew what it was like coming here and demonize just because a small number of people participated in criminal behavior. We demonized the entire Italian community and called them all criminals. Muslims knew what it was like coming here, wearing a hijab, and just because of their religion, they were treated unfairly and not allowed to participate in the American experience. Jews came here and their boats were fleeing Nazi Germany, and we wanted to turn them back into that despair. People who were Spanish speaking, people who came from all over the globe came to this country and said they wanted to participate in the American dream. This dream has been betrayed for so many people. And that betrayal lay in the heart of our educational institutional. We have denied people the right to be educated in this city.
Tell it.
And some people just don't get it.
Come on.
But I got it. I got it. And when I used to put handcuffs on 11-year-old babies and realized that the reason they were committing crimes is because they couldn't read or they had a learning disability, and their mothers and fathers could not give them the treatment that they deserved, I went on an endless journey of interviewing a person to be the chancellor of the mayor of the city of New York for 8 years. I didn't have to do a national search and find someone that don't understand our city. I didn't have to do that. For 8 years, I questioned him. I asked him what he stood for. I went and visited his family and talked to his dad and his mother. I spoke with his brothers and his people that were in his circle. I wanted to see the character of the man I was going to turn my babies over to.
That's right.
Don't tell me about your Ivy League degrees. Don't tell me about where you went to school and how important you think you are. Don't tell me about what you were going to do because of your philosophical theories on understanding children. I don't want to hear about your academic intelligence. I want to know about your emotional intelligence. How sound are you for this battle that we are in front of?
All right.
This is a real fight, New York. We are in a city with 65% of black and brown children never reach proficiency, and we act like that's normal. It's all right. Let me tell you something. If 65% of white children were not reaching proficiency in this city, they will burn this city down. Unacceptable that our children are living this way. You want to close Rikers? Then you go there and you see that 30% of those children are dyslexic and 55% have a learning disability. Let's not talk about the crime on Montgomery Boulevard. Let's talk about the crime that takes place in our educational facilities every day. We've abandoned these children. There needs to be some righteous indignation. But you can't just talk about your anger. We have to turn it around and start this process. That's why we're here for this moment and what it represents and what David Banks represents.
Yes, sir.
A year and a half ago, everything changed in this school and changed throughout the schools in our city. Our babies were traumatized. School buildings closed. The uncertainty, the most important part of their development and their skills, just turned overnight. Suicides and attempted suicide rates have increased. They were living in a state of despair and no one seemed to care. COVID disrupted their lives. And it exposed many inequities. And I know many people say, let's go back to normal. But what was normal? This was a dysfunctional system. And we can't go back to that dysfunctionalities. These men and women who teach our children have dedicated their lives to doing so, and we have not given them the resources that they needed to provide for our babies. We have an over-bureaucratic system with Tweed Courthouse and all those who are living well above and away from the problems on the ground are trying to make decisions for those teachers, educators, paraprofessionals, cooks, janitors, dishwashers who are in these buildings every day. When was the cavalry coming from them? Well, you know what? Those bugles you hear now is David Chancellor coming in. Help is on its way. Now that in-person learning has resumed, we can't return back to the same dysfunctional system that was in play. These inequities were real, and I know them personally. How did I go to school with a learning disability to discover it in college? Just by luck, I was able to turn this around. We can't have a city on luck. Have to have a city on opportunities. And so that's what we want to present. And we're presenting that today. No more children crying themselves to sleep, believing they can't learn. We're going to do universal dyslexia screening and those children with learning disabilities so that they can get the resources they deserve. And we're going to stop demonizing learning disabilities. These children can learn. They learn differently. We need to learn their language and communicate with them in the language they understand so they can live productive lives. That's what David understands. It has been 40 years since I graduated from Bayside High School, and the problems still remain the same. No urgency, no desire to turn it around. We don't believe these children can learn. We bring that attitude every day, but we're going to stop that attitude. David is a visionary, leader, innovator, who has spent his career fighting on behalf of students. Like me, he grew up in Brooklyn. Like me, his family had an opportunity to move to Queens and bring a stable house. I just admire his mom and dad so much. Former police lieutenant, protected the city during some of the most difficult and dark years. But he had a clear vision of what his boys was going to accomplish and what they were going to do. Like me, David is a product of New York City public schools, including this school here, PS 161, where he went to elementary school. He told the young man when he was standing next to him, he said, I have a picture of when I was in the 4th grade and connected with that young child. But so many of these children don't have that connection. And it's time we create a school system where every student is given a chance to succeed and realize their full potential. He has this brother has been a champion for young people throughout his entire life.
That's right.
He knew culturally responsive education before it became a soundbite of those who are here and talking about it now. When other people were talking the talk, David walked the walk. Founder of Eagle Academy. Some of these young men are here today. Eagle Academy from Brownsville. He went into Brownsville and taught these young men how to stand tall. Eagle students don't walk, they soar. And he continued to take those communities who had low struggling graduation rates and started to tailor to young men and duplicated programs of young women and other sister schools are doing the same thing as we deal with the real issues that our children are facing. The numbers tell the story. More than 90% of students graduated from Eagle Academy and go on to a 4-year college. Tell me our children can't learn.
Come on.
And we work together every day to make sure every student gets a quality education. That's our mission. And we're going to change the learning paradigm to emphasize a whole child approach. Got to remove these barriers. Many of our babies are not going to school because they don't have clean clothing. So why can't we put washing machines in these schools? Many of our babies can't read because they don't have eyeglasses. Why can't we give free eyeglasses to our children? Many of these babies are dealing with housing issues. Over 100,000 children are living in shelter. Why can't we have someone on the ground helping our parents with the housing issues that they're dealing with? We have to develop the entire child, not just one child. Maybe Johnny can't read because Johnny did not have a meal the day before, or Johnny's dealing with a domestic violent incident. Maybe Johnny is not in school because Johnny cannot get to school safely because their mother or father don't have the child care services that they need. We got to develop our entire child, and that's what David understands, the full child approach. Then we have to be nutritionally sound. Why the same high crime areas you have the same junk food being fed in the communities? Why do we have food that feeds our chronic diseases served in our schools and no one is connecting that? That is why when we announce the next Department of Health Commissioner, he's going to be connected with our Chancellor so we can provide healthy food to our students and make the connection. And we're going to insist on students starting at a young age. Everyone talks about education is K through 12. No, it is not. Education is pregnancy through profession. Our mothers in those economically challenging communities, we're going to give them doulas so they can understand the power of nurturing and touching their babies and feeding them the right food. And while we do that, we will tackle the maternal morbidity rates that are happening in the same community. Ambitious program, ambitious ideas. You need a visionary. You need someone that's clear on why he's here. And they must understand their purpose. This is a purposeful, driven life of David Banks. I'm so happy when I sat down with the other potential chancellors and I spoke with them. I would walk out of the room and talk to my aides. There's something qualitatively different about what David represents and brings to educating our children. This is his life work.
That's right.
This is his moment and his opportunity. We're going to spend our entire 4 years in office focused on educating our children. And trust me, we're not going to get it right all the time. There are going to be days we could have done a better job. There are going to be days we're going to wish that we could have presented our case better. There's going to be pushback in this bureaucracy of professional dividers and professional naysayers. Far too many people at the high end of this administration don't believe in these babies and their opportunities to learn. We know it's going to be hard. We got a full understanding of the scope of turning around one of the nation's largest school systems and what it represents. But I want you to know something today, that David Banks is built for this. David Banks is ready for this moment. He is prepared for this moment. He went through an 8-year difficult interview process. He knows that. And we're not going to win every war. But darn it, we're not going to lose at trying.
That's right. That's right.
And so on behalf of all the children and families of this city, I want to present to you the next Chancellor of the City of New York, David Banks.
Yes, sir.
My brother.
Yes,
Love you, brother.
sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Stop on it.
Hey.
Stop telling.
Yes, sir.
Love you too, T. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I am deeply humbled, but I'm also ready. I'm humbled because this is a moment where God himself has put forth the word to say this is going to be a different day. I am a person of faith.
That's right. That's right.
You know, a lot of times in public schools, they like to say, don't say a word about God. You can't do that. This is a Kairos moment. I'm a different kind of guy.
That's right.
And I know from whence I come. I want to thank publicly, with the deepest respect and admiration, our Mayor-elect Eric Adams for not only for giving me the opportunity to lead on behalf of all of our young people and their families and our communities, but for being what I believe will be the most bold, bodacious, and transformational mayor that New York City has ever seen. I have not accepted this assignment because I wanted to be chancellor. I didn't come looking for a job. I came to do a job.
That's right. Tell 'em.
And Mayor-elect Adams has said to me, there's nothing more important. You cannot change New York City if you do not change the state of education in this city.
That's right.
And so that is where we begin. But let me tell you where I began. I am the firstborn child of Philip and Janice Banks. This is my mama. If she took her mask off, you'd say she looked just like him. I look just like her. There you go. That's right, Ma. My mother, barely 5 feet tall, but full of fire. Raised 3 boys right here in Brooklyn. My dad, who is my hero.
Yes, sir.
As the mayor-elect said, my father did 27 years in the New York City Police Department. He was a lieutenant when he retired. But more than that, he was the embodiment of what a black man is supposed to be for his family.
That's right.
We were one of the lucky ones, my brothers and I. My brothers Philip and Terry, my brother Terry, who's here, who I knew who's my youngest. He's the youngest of the 3, likes to think that he's the favorite child. Right. But we are a blessed family. I grew up right here in this neighborhood till I was about 12, 13 years old. Right? The back of this schoolyard is Montgomery Street. I lived 1 block over, 394 Montgomery Street. I intend to walk over there when I'm done here today. I haven't been there in years, just to stand out and just reflect on this great moment. The path that my mom and dad set my brothers on was a path of transformation, not only for our lives, but they planted in me and my brothers a seed to know who we are and to know that we have a responsibility, not simply to our families, but to our community. We believe that deeply in who we really are. I loved going to PS 161. I went to this school from kindergarten through the 5th grade. That's the reason why we wanted to be here today. It's a return home for me. In fact, my mother found a picture. This was me in the 4th grade. Lord, what I would give to still have a head full of hair like that. I remember every teacher that I had in the school, Ingrid, because I think we had a lot of the same teachers. But there was a teacher who I had in the 4th and the 5th grade who transformed my life. Mama Rosa, I just want to acknowledge, she's not my teacher, but I want to tell you this. Wait a minute, before you start clapping. Just so you know, because she is the niece of the teacher who had the greatest impact on me in my life. It's a woman named Mildred Scott.
Yes, 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 yes.
I have a picture of Mrs. Scott.
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Scott
She was a beast.
was a wonder. Her spirit looks down on me in this moment. Because it was in this building that Mildred Scott taught me black history.
Yes, that's right.
Not just reading and writing and arithmetic, which is critically important, and you need that. But she taught me who I was. And she taught me about the people who fought, bled, died, and sacrificed for me to have the opportunity to be all that I wanted to be and the responsibility to my community. Far too many of our young people don't get that.
That's right. That's right.
The school system is structured in a way that it never teaches that. It teaches simply the mechanics of school. But if you don't know the purpose of your education, you cannot transform your community. Schools are meant to be part of community.
Yes, yes, yes.
My foundation started here at PS 161 before we moved to Southeast Queens.
All right.
And I went to ultimately graduated from Hillcrest High School. And I had a great educational experience. And my work, I didn't even intend to be a teacher. I didn't go to school to be a teacher. Many of you may not know, I was a school safety officer for a year at Claire Barton High School, right here in Brooklyn. After that, I became a teacher at PS 167 on Eastern Parkway, right here in the same district, my old neighborhood, before getting the call to become a principal, the founding principal of a school in the Bronx called the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice.
Yes, yes, yes.
And did amazing work at that school. And what you should know about that work was that it was a young lady who came to work for me there, who I hired as a teacher, who ultimately became my assistant principal. And when I left, she became the principal of that school. She was one of the most magnificent educators I've ever worked with in my life. And she is a dear friend of mine. And I watched her as her career continued to soar, and she ultimately became our current chancellor, Misha Ross Porter.
There you go.
Misha worked for me when she was 22 years old.
There you go.
And I watched her grow. And I want to take this moment right now, and I want to ask everybody to show some real love, because Misha stepped into a role and a moment that was one of the most difficult moments our city has ever seen, where most people would have said, I wouldn't take that job. But she stepped up and she did it, and our city should be forever grateful. Please, everybody, give a big round of applause to Misha Porter.
Right.
I left that school to become the founding principal of the Eagle Academy for young men.
Yes, yes, yes.
And Mariama and Jonathan, I see you are here. These are two fine students who graduated from Law, Government, and Justice. And I'm so happy to see them here. At the Eagle Academy for Young Men, we have worked to transform the lives of so many young men of color because we know that they face challenges greater than everybody else. And that work has been happening all across this city. And so all my folks who are from Eagle, stand up. Is Eagle in the building? Eagle up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, Kim, I see you in the back. Elizabeth, Susan, our whole team is here. I just thank you all so much because I wouldn't be here were it not for the work that we did at the Eagle Academy. Now we're going to get ready to take this work all over this city. I have worked in this system for over 30 years. Let me tell you what I know. I know that every young person who attends our schools across this city is filled with brilliance, potential, promise, and gifts. And I also know something else, that they exist in a school system which is fundamentally flawed.
That's right, brother.
I'm not talking about the teachers.
That's right.
I'm not talking about the principals. I'm talking about the very architecture of the way that we do school in the first place. The way that we assess our students and their learning is fundamentally flawed. There's a reason why we have this same conversation every single year about what will it take to improve our school system. We've been doing this for decades. And all we do is fight to try to improve the reading and math scores by a few points and then take a bow for doing that. It is, our very approach is off. The way that our children experience school is completely off. But the answers to how we re-engineer the system exists in the hearts and the minds of the teachers, the principals, the children, and their families. If we want to create an innovative school system, you cannot do that without engaging the community.
That's right. That's right.
What you see here today, all around you, all around me, all around the mayor-elect, this is community.
That's right.
This is no ordinary announcement.
All right, all right.
You will never see the mayor-elect, once he's the mayor, or myself as the chancellor, announce any major policy initiatives for our schools unless we are surrounded by parents and families who have co-signed what we are doing.
That's right.
No more will you just see a few people going through the room, think that they're the smartest ones in the room, come up with the answers and say, this is what we're going to do for all of you. The answers are not authentic, and they ultimately cannot get you to where you're trying to go unless the people themselves are part of that process and help to create that.
That's right.
That is what this administration will represent. That is who we are going to be. And I simply want to just tell you, the best is yet to come.
Come on.
We are getting ready to not just play around with this. We're going to turn over the tables. That's what the mayor-elect told me. And think about it. He said, we spend $38 billion every year in this system, and 65% of black and brown children never achieve proficiency. That's a betrayal. And we ought to be outraged by that. And we need to lean into that. You can get those results if you never had a Department of Education. Think about it. If everybody at the Department of Education went home and all the kids just went to school, you could get those same results. So what's the value add for having thousands of people who work at Tweed? For having thousands of people in these high-paid positions? There needs to be a transformation, and it will start at the top. We will turn the tables over. Trust me.
Bust them up. Bust them up.
People have said that for many years. But that's what certainly we intend to do.
That's right, brother. That's right.
So change is coming.
Come on.
I have a message to a lot of folks who are down at Tweed
All right.
who think that they know me.
What? They know you did.
You You know, we like David. David's all right. He's good. We're so glad he's going to be the chancellor. Here's the question that will be asked of everybody who works throughout this department.
There you go. There you go.
If you left and your job disappeared tomorrow, would that change anything that's going on in any of our schools?
Question. Question.
Fundamentally, the job that you have, if it disappeared tomorrow, does it change the life of any young person that goes here to PS 161? Because if it does not, why do we continue to support that? Change is coming. The system will be re-engineered from the bottom up. Because principals like Michael Johnson, who's the principal of this school, who's welcomed us here today, and the principals all over New York City, and I've spoken to thousands of them. I've spoken to thousands of students and administrators and teachers. They are frustrated on a daily basis. That is a bureaucracy that sits on top of them that completely stifles any level of innovation.
That's right. That's right.
You cannot innovate or transform the system from the top down. It has to be from the bottom up. And so for all of the teachers who work not only at PS 161, but in every school around New York City, change is coming. I want you to know that I see you.
That's right, brother.
And I respect you. And we don't lift our teachers up. We don't celebrate our teachers. We just constantly beat them down. In the middle of a pandemic, when we say we need to go back to a new normal, we need to do things differently, but we are in a quick run to try to take it back to the way it always was.
That's right.
Because it's what we know. And so I'm trying to bring a new vision together, working with the mayor-elect. This is his vision. He and I have been talking about this for years.
That's right.
And so we're going to do this, and we're going to transform this system. We're going to give it everything that we possibly can. I want to thank all my family who was here, my Aunt Barbara, my Uncle Rob, who came here all the way from Florida to be here. My Aunt Barbara, who was an educator in Brooklyn for her entire career. God bless you. You know how much I love you. All my cousins, Nadine, Demetrius, Sharon, everybody that's here. I got a big family, y'all, so I don't want to keep going. But I simply want to say, as a final word to all of you, don't ask me about gifted and talented today. That's not what today is about. Don't ask me about specialized high schools today. We're gonna have answers for all of that.
There you go, brother.
But today is a day to celebrate what will be a rebirth of this department. And today is a day to recognize that it is the community that you see around you who will represent that rebirth. God bless you. Thank you, everybody. I'm ready to get to work.
Hold on. There was a day when it really clicked on why I needed him, David Banks, to be the chancellor, and I want you to share this story. This is your moment, so you don't have to rush. You're the chancellor, brother. I want you to share the story of those young men who people told that they were not college ready. Share that story.
At the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, when I left there and I went to the Eagle Academy in the Bronx, we sent several young men to Wheelock College in Boston. And at Wheelock College in Boston, I got a call one day after several years from the president of that college, Dr. Jackie Jenkins Scott. And she called me to say, David, I just want you to know, you sent us these 3 young men, and they didn't just show up on this campus. They were leaders on this campus. I don't know what you poured into those boys, but they brought their Bronx swag and their Eagle swag, and I mean, they just took their place on this campus. And so she asked me to come to Wheelock for their graduation. And she said, we want to present you with an honorary doctorate on that day. And so I set forth to go to Wheelock in Boston with my mom and my dad and my beloved Sheena Wright, who is the president of the United Way of New York City and the head of the transition committee. And Sheena, we all went down to Boston, and we got there, And at the graduation ceremony, the president stood there, and I'm flanked by somebody from the Board of Trustees and the faculty. Everybody's in cap and gowns. There's a big pomp and circumstance. And the president began to talk about all the wonderful things we've been doing at Eagle Academy. And before she could start, the three young men from Eagle Academy, Marvin, Elamine, and Ivan, stood up in their cap and gowns at their college graduation in front of over 3,000 people, and they said, out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be from our unconquerable soul. They recited the poem Invictus. Invictus was the poem that Nelson Mandela recited every day for the 27 years that he was locked up on Robben Island. It's a poem that every young man who goes to Eagle Academy recites every day. It's the poem of resilience, that when you get knocked down, you know to get back up. And in the face of challenge, you continue to persevere. That is part of what we pour into our young men. Marvin stayed in Boston to work at a big communications firm. Elamine went to Africa to join the Peace Corps. And Ivan went to Purdue University in Indiana to pursue a dual master's and PhD program. By every account, you'd say a success, right?
Yes.
We came back to New York, and we ran the numbers for each one of those three young men. Don't you know, each one of those three young men was deemed not college ready by the New York City Department of Education. That's what I'm talking about when I say fundamentally flawed. Because college readiness is measured purely by the score that you got on a math or ELA test. It doesn't measure grit, determination, all the things that you've had to overcome in your life to make it. If you don't make a certain score, we say you get the scarlet letter. Your school gets a scarlet letter. You're not a good school. The students are no good. And people begin to internalize that. The measure, the very fabric of how we are actually measuring our children and measuring progress for our schools is fundamentally flawed.
Go ahead, tell it.
It doesn't mean that test scores don't mean anything. They do. They just don't mean everything. And so we are going to be a champion for change.
Yes.
We're going to be a champion for talking about other ways to assess our children and our schools. Our children and our teachers are waiting for someone to unleash the power of passion and creativity in their very bones. They go to school and sit in rows for 45 minutes for a period every day, all day. I want young people to recognize, as Mayor-elect Adams has said, the great outdoors. There's so much learning that takes place outside the four walls of the building.
Yes.
New York City should be their classroom. Yes. The whole world should be their classroom. Yes. With the use of technology, we can bring the whole world right to their phone. They should be accessing information. They can have access to the best teachers around the world. It shouldn't be limited to just the teacher that's in their classroom. The power of possibility is so magnificent. We just have to embrace it. Yes. And that's what we intend to do.
Don't say it. That's why I knew it's the right man. And those three young men personify what he has done with so many other young men. And that's the message we want to send to these young people, that don't blame yourselves. You are better than what people told you to do. Someone said in 1975 to an elder that went to see her son locked up in the 103rd precinct, they said he would never be anything. And that son turned out not only to be something, he turned out to be the mayor in charge of that police department. Don't give up, New York. Don't surrender. We are better than what they said we were, and we're going to move this city forward. So I thank you for this moment. I thank you, David, for taking on this role of being the Chancellor of the city of New York. Stephen, the ball is in your corner.
We're going to take on-topic questions at this time only from members of the media. On topic at this time. Jillian, you first.
David and I are friends. We are brothers. We are going to be partners. I would not have chosen David if I did not have the overall confidence in his ability. We spent 8 years. People need to understand that. David was not interviewed in 3 months or 6 months. He went through 8 years of my questioning, my meetings, my conversations. I do not have to worry about him carrying out the full mission of what I want to accomplish in education. We're going to have a relationship where we will respectfully disagree behind doors, but we are going to come in front to show a united front. And I know that this is the right man for the job, and we not only respect each other, we love each other as two men that are just from Brooklyn that was able to make it through the process.
That's right. I concur.
Yes, ma'am. And that's a great question, because that's what we're going to see in the city. You're going to see probably day 3, everyone is going to say, why hasn't Eric found the cure of every disease on the globe? You know, they're going to start hitting David with, well, you know, the test scores came out and your children are doing this and doing that. We know this. What you're going to see from me is a level of confidence and discipline. I am not on anyone's clock but my clock. I'm not going to tell people to tell me, why haven't you announced this? Why haven't you done that? You are going to see the completion of my 4 years, a different city in every aspect of it. And what I need from New Yorkers, trust me, I am you. And we're going to lay out all of our involvements. We're going to be transparent. We're going to allow you to see what happens in the educational facilities. We are going to invite you in. We're not going to be afraid of communicating with our media. We want you to hold us to task. But we're going to allow you to see this amazing journey that we're about to take children and families on. And the first thing you're going to see is a chancellor that is going to be very much engaged in the lives of teachers, children, and families. And you're going to see a different energy. You're going to see signs in schools where children are going to see the name of schools that they want to attend. You walk through the Eagle Academy and you see colleges there. They name classrooms after colleges. You're going to see a different phrase and terminologies. When you look inside this school, every morning, this principal, he has his children reciting positive affirmations of who they are and what they experience. When these babies get here, many of them are broken in so many different pieces. And we need to give that affirmation that you are fine, you are okay. That's why the poem takes place in Eagle Academy. It's more than just what's in those books, folks. You're going to see David start the process of transforming how these children think about themselves. That's what you would see day one. And so our clock is our clock. You have 4 years to judge me. 4 years.
That's right.
And at the end of the 4 years, if you can't look at yourself and say that our children are better than what they were, that our streets are safer than what they were, that we are in a better place than what we felt we were 4 years ago, then that is when I want to be judged. Let me finish this journey, and I'm going to show you we are going to get this right. It's one thing I know how to do. I know how to lead.
My message to parents and families is that they will be seen, they will be heard, they will be respected. That is what I need them to know. That decisions are not going to be made for their children without them being engaged in that process. I intend to frame the system so that things will not move unless we are hearing from our parents. That doesn't mean that all the parents agree with each other, but they will be heard. And that is most important, not only to me, but that's what is important to parents. There's a reason why parents don't trust this system, because they feel at its core they're not respected. See, if you really respect the parents, you seek out their opinion before you make a decision and then say, now I want to hear from you. They understand what that means. So, and I, it's part of my DNA. I'm a person of the community. I don't just do that as a photo op. I do that because I fundamentally believe that if you want the best answers for the system, ask the parents. This notion that because I'm the chancellor or the people who work at Tweed, that we actually are smarter, we know better, and we figure it out, and then we just kind of bring it out to everybody and say, we've got the ideas for you. I believe that is at its core. That's not even the correct way to come up with the best answers. The best answers really exist. And these young people themselves, they will give us the way forward for the schools. They're experiencing it every day. We have to ask them, but you have to respect them to hear their voice.
That's right.
I want to see student government in every school in New York City. Our kids need to learn to be civically engaged. Ayana, you think about this. We're graduating kids. We send kids from pre-K all the way through the 12th grade. And then they graduate. They don't know how to open a checking account. They couldn't tell you the difference between a city councilman and a state assembly person.
Thank you.
Right? They civically, and then we wonder why so many Americans don't vote. Because we don't build that muscle in the K-12 system. And I'm not just talking about a civics class. I'm talking about them coming out of the school building, going to the community planning board meeting, going to the NAACP meeting, my dukes, right? Sitting with their local congressman. You can ask most students, you can ask most teachers, who's your local congressman? Who's your state senator? Who's your city council person? They wouldn't even know. And then so how do you expect for them to activate as engaged citizens? Every school in America says we're developing young people to be engaged citizens. No, they're not. Because those are just words. How are you actually putting that into practice? A North Star in this administration is going to be career pathways.
That's right.
Helping young people. Mayor-elect Adams has been saying this for years. If kids don't understand why they go to school, if we're not preparing them to take their place in the 21st century economy, what are we doing? They're graduating and they don't even have the skills to go into industry. Many of them don't have the skills to go to college. Some who go to college go for a year or two and come back home filled with debt. And so when we're not properly preparing our young people to take their place in the 21st century economy, there are great opportunities out here. This is not, these CTE pathways, this is not your grandfather's CTE. These are high-tech jobs that pay a lot of money. I want 12th graders to be able to graduate and get a job and come off their mommy and daddy's payroll. Those opportunities are sitting there. The corporate America is saying, we need you to produce young people that can take their place. We need them.
That's right.
We're not just saying it will be a good thing. We need it. Yes. We need them to be our workforce. Yes. And our schools are doing a good job of schooling, but not educating. There's a difference.
Yes.
Relevant education, focus, and when young people know where they're going, when they know they have an opportunity to be an investment banker, when they know they have an opportunity to be an artist, when they know they have whatever those opportunities that they are, that's what will be different. We are going to put a framework in place that they will see the power of possibility for themselves.
Right.
And our teachers will see it as well. Because far too many of our teachers have no idea what it's like on the other side of graduation. What does it mean to work in a place like Google or Microsoft? Most of our teachers don't even know. So how are we properly preparing young people for the future that we say we're preparing them for? We're not. In far too many of our schools, you can close your eyes and it might as well be 1950. Except there's a smart board in the front of the room. And that's not the fault of the teachers We have to raise the consciousness of the teachers as well. They need a whole new approach to professional development so that they understand what we are ultimately preparing young people for in the world of work to take their place in this economy. That is the kind of thing that will get the kids really fired up. They'll be excited to understand these jobs that they have a chance to get. But if it's just go to school just for the sake of going to school, that's not enough.
That's right. Well said. Well said. Well said. Oh, and that is why you see this holistic approach. This is why I'm sitting down with my business leaders and not creating this wall, because I'm asking them to invest in these schools. This is why we're building out a real workforce development plan that is going to be in alignment with the skills we're teaching our children so they can go into these jobs. This is why we're attracting businesses here. I want people to come here. This should be the center of life science, the center of drone development, cybersecurity. It should be taught in these schools. And if we have the partnership with our business entity where they can do paid internship programs where children are getting the exposure that they need. All of this is fitting together. We're not dividing our city. We're not telling our business leaders, so what if you're here or not? No, we want them here. But while you're here, there's a good community corporate responsibility that you have. That is where we're going as a city. And David's vision of our young people, he's going to feed employment and not feed incarceration.
That's right. That's right.
That's it. Marcia?
Well, David could respond. Every job that educate, protect, care for children will be safe. Be clear on what I said.
Right.
If you're there because you enjoy going to conferences, if you're there because you're using taxpayers' dollars to extend your educational criteria to pad your resume, if you're there for anything other than educating our children, then you should be concerned. But if you're there because you have a real record that you are providing the services that are needed for our children, then we want you. And I think Davis has made it clear. $38 billion, taxpayers deserve a better product. That's the largest budget in our city. And then when you add on the billions in resources that's coming from the federal and state government, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do some of the things that we talked about for a long time. And we need to re-examine every dollar that's being spent. We need to be more transparent on where those dollars are going, where they're coming from, and how we're getting them into the classrooms. David made it clear several times. It's time to lift up our teachers and allow them the joy of learning again. And we need to use the taxpayers' dollars to do so. We are not getting our money's worth, New Yorkers. Don't let anyone kid you. We are not getting our money's worth. You are doing your job of paying your taxes to educate our children, and we must do our job in the DOE. And David can, further expound on that.
Just very quickly, I mean, we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of things to figure out. We're not going to talk about who's in or who's out, but Mayor-elect basically laid it out. But we are going to be committed to decentralizing a lot of the bureaucracy. And it doesn't necessarily mean people losing jobs. What it means is we're going to push people closer to where the action is. The action is in schools. We recently saw the current mayor sending people from Tweed to go to work in schools, and people were coming out of tweet were like, my Lord, I've never worked around kids before. What am I supposed to do? We got to change that.
right.
All right? So we're going to work on that, Marshall.
That's crazy.
I am seeing a lot of people huddling and shivering, so we're going to
Yes.
quick. And I just want to let folks know when we did cut off on topic, the mayor-elect and the incoming chancellor are going to be going to the front of the school. There is a young person who is going to be getting vaccinated. They're going to be visiting with the young person getting vaccinated, and we will have off-topic opportunities for the mayor-elect in front of the school after that. I just want to give good guidance. Derek?
Listen, this is going to be a unique administration.
That's right.
That charter school, parochial schools, district schools, those Christian schools, those are adult conversation. We're going to have children conversation. We're going to scale up excellence. Wherever we find excellence, we're going to duplicate that. So when we look at Bedford Academies, their excellence and what they're doing, why is there only one Bedford Academy? We look at Eagle Academy. Why are there only 5 Eagle Academies? The school system has gotten in the way of scaling up excellence. So if there's a charter school that's producing a good product, we're going to model and duplicate and scale that up. All schools should be laboratories of excellence, and we need to duplicate those excellence. So you're not going to see this administration engage in a low-level conversations or the names of school. We're going to have a high-level conversation of scaling up excellence. Wherever we find it, we're going to duplicate and scale it up and continue to scale up and lift up excellence. Thank you.
Right.
One last one, Dave.
Well, I think we do a poor job of ensuring school campuses and creating environments around the schools where we can make sure, number one, that it's safe, being an advocate of having cameras around schools, partnering with folks like Senator Ganadas for speed cameras is crucial, but also creating a safe passageway for children so they could experience biking, exercising. We have a childhood obesity crisis, but many of our children are afraid to ride to and from school because it's unsafe. So we want to think differently, bring in those advocates, look at new school designs and streets designs. That's part of our overall program of traffic calming, and that's built into it. So there's a real holistic approach we want to do to engage our children and communities, as the chancellor, incoming chancellor, has stated, and that's factored into that.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you, dear. Bless you. Oh, yeah.
Which way we going, Stephanie?
Make sure you get these pictures. Terry, make sure you get the pictures.
Eric, Mayor.
You're gonna have picture opportunities from now until the end of time.
Thank you, dear. All right, David.